Hi guys, this is Goddess Starla Vamp, back for another segment of Ask a Dominatrix, where I answer your questions about fetish, kink, and BDSM. And recently someone sent me a really nice email, and this is going to be my focus of today's segment. I like to focus on polite, thoughtful messages. I feel like it's more of a reflection of what I'm trying to bring to you. It's at a level that I feel is more developed, and I know I've done some pretty nasty, filthy, whatever, dirty stuff in the past, but I'm also looking for things that are philosophical and thought-provoking, and I'm really concerned with the psychology, always behind everything, always the deeper questions at play, and always the curiosity of, okay, myself and this person have common interests, but who are they? Like, where do they come from? And why are we connecting? And what is that feeling? That instant chemistry, if you will. So I'm always looking for voices that resonate with myself, and it gives me something to bounce off of and reflect on. So with that said, yes, I will answer somewhat rude or flippant messages, but hopefully, if you've known me for quite a while, you're going to be a little bit more diplomatic. I can get my hands dirty, but I'm trying to bring this whatever dark psychology into the light. And for my older listeners, you've probably seen what a hard journey it is to bring a better reputation out of consensual pain. This is not an easy fight. So when we're dealing with this topic, we're dealing with something that has been grossly, unfairly demonized. So let's examine this. We're all grown-ups. We're mature. We're mature human beings who want to be more educated, who want to evolve. We want to get smarter and more sophisticated and fucking hot. Let's just be hot. So with that introduction, let's get started to this email. Hi, Goddess Starla. Let me first say that I'm really enjoying your podcast and think they're fabulous. I've been a fan of yours for many years when you first started Femdom and thoroughly enjoyed Randy's progression underneath your watchful eye. I thought I'd put forward a few questions to interact with the podcast and maybe give you a few topics for discussion. Please don't feel that you have to answer any of the questions if anything is too personal, and apologies for asking. I thoroughly enjoy listening to the podcast when falling asleep and letting my mind slowly drift into a dreamy state whilst listening to you. Once again, thank you for the fabulous content past and present. Like, this is such a nice email. Take notes. Study. Okay, let's get started. Have you ever thought about publishing a book on your journey and experiences? This is something that I've wrestled with back and forth, and I've come to the conclusion that I'm not at liberty to talk about what I do enough, and Legally, there's just things that I can't mention or that I can't say. And basically at this point, for the depths of what I'm dealing with, I'm still too young. And I'm still too young to be outing myself about the pressure and compression of what I'm dealing with. So I can't literally say on paper a lot of things. And is that unfortunate? Not really. Like, if I'm 80 years old, I can change my mind after I've lived my life. But I'm just still too young to, like, and for where I am at this point in my life, this is actually a really great development for me, because I've really outed myself, and I actually had the luxury of not being outed. I've never been outed by other people. It's always been my choice to come out, but like, I outed myself. So I'm at a position where I'm talking more freely. I have more transparency, and with this channel here, I'm being more transparent. I'm not the cookie cutter dominatrix. And I'm stepping outside of these labels and formats and commercial niches. But when I started the website, it wasn't cookie cutter. It was still a discovery. It was still an exploration, and it was still being in the midst and finding a path to go through with whatever you want to call it, would be commercial fetish niches. So this is just, it's been an evolution, and there's been a lot of changes with everything. So at this point, I just can't, I can't write about it. I can't develop these stories enough, and the experiences that I've had, they've been in confidence, and I'm not totally comfortable with it, but I'll warm up to it. Like, I'm not really comfortable talking about married men. I feel conflicted about it, but at the same time, this is our reality. These are structures in society that we're working with and we're dealing with, but the internet and its transparency is blowing things wide open, and we're all studying each other. So I know this firsthand, but I don't even have to be the one to tell you how many people that I see are married, because if you just look out into society and do a little research on the internet, it's all there. So we're at a very different place where there's so much surveillance, there's so much documentation, and I think in society we just have an understanding that these boxes that we built, they're not as rigid, and they are like see-through walls. But I'm not comfortable talking about married men, and like all the nuances and complications that go along with that. And I like to come at fetish from a more neutral place, even though the reality of that is it is not. And a lot of these men have double lives. A lot of these men are lying to their wives, but not all of them. And that's where I exist. And that's where I'm most comfortable, is the married man who'll tell his wife he's coming over here. And maybe he'll even sit on the couch and call her. Like she wants to know what I'm doing or whatever. Like, that's where I'm most comfortable. But the reality is that's not everyone. And I have a conscience about it, and it's not my ambition out of jealousy or spite or something to like get in between relationships or whatever. I show up, I meet my part of the bargain, and the rest is on them. So it's a very intricate thing. And if I were to write a book, a lot of it would be about that. And it's just, it's something that I want to keep in confidence, even though I don't have to give real names or anything like that. But it's just so delicate. And I guess with that discomfort, the thing that still attracts me to that kind of situation is that they are asking for a fetish from a really sincere place. And as part of their livelihood. So when they come to me and they know what they want and they're respectful and they see me as a real person and they're sincere and polite, can rationalize themselves, and they're intelligent, it's still an attractive place, because it's sincere and it's real. And we have to seek out things that make us happy. And we want to feel alive. Would you ever want to have a similar journey, like the one with Randy, where you work towards a full transformation, almost like unfinished business? So I've touched on this question before, where because of how real our relationship was going into the website, I talk about this in the origin story, and really open up about how that all started. So maybe you didn't see that segment, but just to elaborate on that a little bit more, that wasn't the end goal in my understanding, and when we started the site. And I also want to talk about how, with where that term forced feminization begins and ends, because this is a niche that, when I first started this, it was like the newer days of all these fetish niches, and it was still like a very playful thing. Cross-dressing's fun. Like, what's the big deal? What are the consequences? What are the ramifications of just going along with this? And a hard limit for me now is I will not role play forcing someone to take hormones. That is not my responsibility. It's in the real world, of course, it's not ethical, but as a fantasy, it is something I am not comfortable with. And I didn't see the negative side of how me forcing someone or me pressuring someone or me role playing with someone through transitioning what might be viewed as unfinished business. It's like I wouldn't do it again. Do I blame myself for doing it in the first place? No, because it was a different time. It was an exploration. And so much of this architecture, the structure of all these things, it just didn't exist yet. So I can't blame myself for that. But is it something that I'm comfortable fetishizing? Absolutely not. That was a difficult question, but if I didn't want to answer it, I didn't have to. But I just feel like this is a long-standing misinterpretation of what happened with us. And in the end, it was too dividing. And while it was happening, it was great, but the outcome didn't work out. Through the years, I've seen how what I thought were these kind of like take it with a grain of salt fetish niches of like forced feminization, forced sissification. It's always been under the umbrella of fantasy. And in my mind, it was like, yeah, it's forced, but it's not really forced. But I think that fantasy and that dream, it ran further than I thought it would. It was taken way more seriously. It's like, no, it's not. None of this is forced. It's supposed to be safe. Like, people are signing up for this. And so with that, I want to say, in response to that, it's not forced. No one can force you in your gender identity. You can't give that responsibility to someone else. You can't give that that power, that control to someone else. You're the one with the body. You're the one with the identity. You're responsible for your identity. You're responsible for your gender identity. Like, you can't just pass it off to a woman because she's your mistress and because she's hot and because she's sexy or whatever, like, and because she's demanding. Like, you can't just hand that over. Nothing works that way. Nothing. It doesn't work that way. Ultimately, your gender identity is your own responsibility. It's your life. You're the one who has to go along and create your own map. Myself included. My gender identity is my responsibility. I'm a cis woman, but I wear a cock. And this is something like that I've had some inner turmoil about, because I like wearing a strap-on so much and I like playing that role. And I thought, well, like the strap-on, this dildo is an extension of myself, and it really impacts my relationships. Like, what is that? And a woman with a plastic cock. That's what I am, a woman with a plastic cock, and having to rationalize that and figure that out. It's my responsibility. No one can do that for me. I have to figure out, I have to do the emotional work to come to these conclusions. And these are good questions to ask, like, or to struggle over. And if you can find a clear answer that you know is real, then you're just gonna know yourself better. So, if I didn't have a plastic dildo to use that as an extension of myself, I'd feel like something was missing. I'd be upset because it's something that the whole dynamic is something that I can relate to. So, and that's part of my identity, and I accept that. And I think as you get older, you just realize more who you are. You get kind of stuck in your ways, maybe a little bit. Maybe it can be harder to be open-minded, but like and coming from me, like that's something that I have to keep reminding myself, is to stay open-minded, because sometimes I'll think, oh, I found the answer. I know the answer. And then I'm like, oh, okay. This is like, yeah, things are just more complicated than you can anticipate. And if the evidence is there, the proof is there, the reality is there, oh shit, you better go with reality, because you're gonna get stagnant and you're gonna get stuck. And the world will leave you behind because it's not the reality. Life and science, they're gonna go off and you're gonna be sitting there. But back in my day, I was a goddess. Okay, I shouldn't just keep talking about how I'm getting older. So, moving forward, what's your own personal fantasy which you haven't yet experienced because the timing hasn't been quite right, or it's better keeping it a fantasy than reality? So people have asked me about like what my fantasies are and things like that. I think at this point, I'd like to keep exploring fetish. I would like to have someone in my life who's as open, as curious, who I can explore things with, but also document it. So, because a lot of the fantasy for me, even though I'm here on YouTube trying to break down the fantasy that I created, I still want to go back. And develop it. And so I'm looking for someone who's comfortable and genuinely wants that kind of adventure with a camera in their face, and who can take it to a sophisticated level. Are they submissive? Are they dominant? Are like they a switch? No, it doesn't really matter to me. I'm pretty open, but that is like something that I think about, and something that I would want to work into my reality is someone who can design the new fantasy, I guess. It seems you've turned a new chapter in your life and moving forwards and in a new direction. What does the future hold? Someone asked me recently what my 3-year plan is, and it's like, okay. With the pandemic and the uncertainty with everything, the future, it's just very uncertain. I've been studying fashion. I'd like to steer more into creating designs, working with leather, PVC, corsets, things like that, but also not being held to these like kind of cookie cutter formats. Um, I'm looking for something really fresh, and I haven't I'm not there yet. I haven't developed it yet. I haven't really had the chance. With everything that's happened with the pandemic, it's just getting by right now. But it's been a time where things are really grounded. I'm just coming at everything from a different place, and I also would like to travel more. Maybe like do fetish conventions. Hopefully they're still out there and stuff like that. But just speaking more about what I do and taking time to slow down and reflect and rationalize these things that have been happening over the past years. I can pick up a riding crop whenever I want. I need to work out a little bit, but I can probably bring myself to a place where I'm athletic enough to dominate men like I did before. But mentally, I'm just wanting to reach out and rationalize things and just bring more things to light and talk about the psychology, because it's the opposite from the commercialism. And I feel like commercially things have been the same flavor for a long time, and I need a different flavor. So it's just things change, people's taste changes, and yeah, it's a different phase for me, but I think one of my strengths is my strength of character and the fact that I can own up to the things that I've done, and I'll answer to these things even though I'm supposed to be in a shroud of secrecy in discretion. I can allude to different things or talk about different things without, giving away the confidentiality, but I feel really strong in the fact that over all this time, I've owned up to the things that I've done, and that's more than a lot of the men that I've met. That's more than they can say. So I just really want to challenge that, because the things that I've built, I feel like it comes from my own place of integrity. I'm interested in the reality of that, and I'm interested in trying to sit in the light, because you just see people disappearing. You just see these stories and realities go off in the shadows, and so many people drop off from doing this kind of thing, and you just never hear about them again. Oh, maybe they just like moved off and got married and lived in a cabin in the woods. Who knows? And we never hear follow-up stories. So I'm like that follow-up story, who's just gonna like sit there in the interrogation light until we come to a different place or a different understanding, or till we get the story, till we get more of the story, more of the situation, and then we move forward. So that's like a really long tangent to the question, what now? So fashion and fetish conventions and just more exploration. Any plans to travel in the future and perhaps session in other countries? This is something I actually was thinking about a few days ago, and I've never toured. I haven't done that much traveling. Maybe if I had some really concrete reasons to go somewhere. But like I'd mentioned, conventions appeal to me. You know, if I were to like be part of a panel or like lecture or something like that. But I'd need like a concrete reason. Would you ever offer longer term sessions where a sub could possibly fly in and be under your control for a longer period than a couple of hours? I'm actually like don't really offer like longer sessions like that. I don't do overnight stuff. I'm kind of rigid with my boundaries, but with that, like, I do want to travel. I do seek adventure. It just needs to be like the right kind of opportunities and at the right time. Have you ever thought about doing recordings for sale or reading fetish stories? You have a really sexy voice. Thanks. I actually auditioned for like one of those kind of like biker daddy romance novels, and I got rejected. Biker daddy didn't want me. But that was just so yeah, it is something that I'm thinking about. They have to like me, and they have to like my voice, and I'm Canadian. I'm from Alberta, so I have this Alberta twang. A lot of people ask me if I'm British, which I think is like so nice, but it's like, no, it's this Albertan prairie girl twang. You know, it is who I am. It's the way I talk, and I'm glad if you find it sexy. Yeah, but yeah, so I just don't know what's on the horizon, and I'm just taking each day as it comes, and I'm working with the fantasy. I'm rebuilding it. I never left it. And people have asked me, did I sell the website? It's sitting there. It's still mine. I'm just not in a position right now where the world is open enough. And I live in Canada, and I've been pretty fucking stuck. So it's been a long haul, but we are coming out of this Canadian winter. The snow is going to melt eventually. Spring will be here. New life, new hope, new excitement, new adventure, new ideas. And we just work with the realities that we have. And I'm really glad that I have this space to express myself, to be myself. It's really flattering, and you guys have been really supportive and optimistic, and I feed off of that, and I need that, and I wouldn't be here if you guys weren't so fucking sweet and caring. And I love men. And not just because I get to hurt you. I still keep getting these messages that are really endearing. And I count myself lucky for it. especially in these catastrophic times, these dark times, facing evil. And if I can offer something positive and something that will resonate in the future, we get to go off in the future together and build new things and design new things from intelligence and create things that are civilized. And that's everything to me, is to be intelligent and civilized and kind. And this this exit got really intense, but but they're intense times. And I'm really lucky that I have this safe space here. And when I can share my philosophies and real parts of myself, and I can communicate that, it makes me safer. I'm not isolated. I'm not being kind of contorted or coerced into situations that I would rather not be in. So that's important for me, to be honest, and communicate those things. And because fetish in itself is really complicated, so I think some of the things that I'm trying to interpret, they might fall between the cracks, and that's not, those are missed opportunities to connect and for my voice to be amplified. So I hope I hope that translates. All right. Thanks, guys.